What is your full name?
Eldaveda, Gilbreath. It took me 2 years to learn how to spell it when I started school.
And what is your maiden name?
Gilbreath.
What year were you born?
1928.
What were your parents' names?
Perry Gilbreath. My mother's name was Ira, E-R-A, Avery Gilbreath.
Did you say Avery?
Mm-hmm. She was Avery.
What was your father's occupation?
He was a farmer.
What schools did you attend in Wood County?
I went to Gilbreath to the 8th grade and then went to Quitman, and that's where I finished at Quitman. So I was lucky I didn't go but to 2 schools.
What was the highest grade taught at Gilbreath?
That I cannot answer for sure because whenever I finished, it was the 8th grade. But I think they taught even to the 9th grade. I won't be sure about that.
Do you know how the school got its name?
I have heard different things about it, that the land was, where the school was at, belonged to a Gilbreath. And it was called Gilbreath School. Now, I wouldn't say that is true, but that's what we grew up hearing.
Right. How old were you when you started school?
I can't remember where we started in at the age of 6 or the 7th, but I know that my early years was at Gilbreath.
Do you remember what year you started?
No, I don't. I can remember my first grade teacher very well.
What was her name?
Miss Minnie Young, Miss Minnie Young. At that time, we had 2 grades in each room. So she was my first and my 2nd grade teacher. If we started out the first, I can't remember, Miss McWhirter, do you remember if we started any earlier? It seemed like we started when we were 7 years old. Now, I'm not sure on that. It may have been 6. But
how did you get to school each day?
we walked, and that's the story. Whenever I start telling my children, and we have raised 4 boys, whenever I started telling them that we didn't have a car, nobody had a car back then. We walked, and we walked through woods. And it was a good mile, probably over a mile. And it was rain or sleet or snow. We walked. There would be several families, several of us.
Friends?
Friends, mm-hmm. We were divided up in sections. We had a road that went this way, we had a road that went this way, and we called that road the Wildcat Road. Now, I don't know why it was Wildcat Road, but it's called the Wildcat Road. And then we had a road this way, we had a road going down 154, and everybody knew their route. And if it was real cold and bad, the Quitman bus passed by then on where I live at now on 515. The Quitman bus passed by with their children coming to Quitman School, and if they weren't crowded, they would let us ride to up on 154 and let us off near the school, but we had to walk home in the evening.
Where was your school located?
On 154. Do any of you remember where Liddell Hurley's grocery store was at there on 154? Do you remember, Miss McWhirter?
Yes,
Okay. We wasn't allowed then, but there was a little store there, and one of the Hurleys run that. We wasn't allowed to go to it, but we went in a little dirt road, and it was right there. It was just right there. I'm an old timer. It's just right there.
Is that the one you showed me?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good.
And the church was right by the school.
Which church?
It was the Gilbreath Church, Gilbreath Baptist Church.
Is it still there?
No, somebody bought it and moved it.
Did any students ride a horse?
Some of the boys did, but they always got in trouble, so they wasn't allowed to ride the horse very much.
Did it have a lunchroom?
Not then, everybody carried their lunch. It was a 4-room house, as far as I can remember. A real pretty white house building with high windows and everything. We had a stage in there.
So you had an auditorium?
Mhm.
Was the school ever damaged by the weather or fire?
Not that I know of, no. Not the 8 years that I went there.
Do you remember when school started in the morning
8 o'clock,
and about what time it
about
ended?
3.
Did you ever have to miss school to work in the field or at home?
I didn't. My brothers may have, but very seldom.
Do you remember any of your other teachers?
My 2nd grade teacher was a Miss Tice. And as far as I remember, I think she was Mr. Goosby's sister, one of his sisters.
That's correct.
She was my 3rd and 4th grade teacher.
Did you have any male teachers?
We had, while I was going there was 2 male teachers, and my teacher in the 7th and 8th grade was Mr. Jack Wynn, a very firm teacher. There wasn't no tearing up. There wasn't no disorder. Whenever he said sit down, you sit down. And what I remember about him, he believed in a good handwriter. And we, even in the 7th and 8th grade, we took writing lessons. And we had to hold this hand a certain way, up, down, and O, and O, and O, and O, and O. And I thought in the 8th grade, why am I here to do this? But we had to, and we were graded by it.
Did you ever pull any tricks on your teachers?
No.
Do you have any stories about your teachers?
I remember whenever Mr. Jack Wynn was still there, that one summer, I don't know where, it was during school time or it was in the summer, but anyway, he gathered a bunch of us up and carried us to Fort Worth to the Fat Stock Show. And we thought that was an honor because even though I live close to Yantis, not too far from Yantis, I never went to Yantis. I didn't even know what was in Yantis. And we thought, boy, what an honor that was for us to get to go to Fort Worth. And he put us in the back of a pickup truck and put a tarp over it. And we packed our lunch and we spent the day watching the rodeo. And we thought that was an honor now. But if we misbehaved, we didn't get to go anymore.
Do you remember any of the supplies that you had to bring to school?
We had a big red tablet, a pencil, a fountain pen, and a bottle of ink. Many a time the girls' hair got baptized with ink. And our desk, had that hole in it that we set the ink down in, and we wasn't allowed to spill that, because if we did, we might get punished.
Do you remember any of your friends?
I went to school with the Cade girls, Lavinia and Elsie Cade, and both of them ended up being school teachers. And I went to school with the Bussa girls, Imogene and Velma Jane, and the McLaughlin's lived. They was the first ones that we would stop by when we left our house and pick up that bunch. And whenever I say pick them up, we all got together and walked our route and everything. And I went to school with Dean McLaughlin and James McLaughlin and Mitchell McLaughlin. They were the 3 boys. And the Pogues, there were some of the Pogues that lived. They went the Wildcat Road, but we would meet. And that's where we'd get in trouble, when we'd all meet sometimes. And sometimes we had to walk a across a little creek, and it had some of the parents build a little bridge for it. And many a time, some of the younger boys got baptized there because we just push them off the creek. So that's the only meanness that I think of that we would get into.
Can you describe the school building?
Yes, I can. It was a long white building that had a little porch kind of like this, and on this end, on the right end of it, was a storage building, and on the other end of it, middle, was a storage building, and then we walked into a classroom here and a classroom here, and then on the back of it, side of it, and everything had a little porch, and that was where the first grade and the second grade and the third and the fourth grade met. And the younger ones played in the front yard, and the older ones played in the backyard. And that way we didn't get in trouble.
Do you remember how big the school lot was?
I would say probably 2 or 3 acres of all of it, because we had a basketball court, we had a softball that we played in. Even though it had grass burrs in it, we played in it. So.
Did the school have a swing set or merry-go-round or anything?
We had a merry-go-round, and if I remember right on it, that most of our parents, some of the parents got together and built it, and I do know we had a seesaw, and it was made out of a big old trunk of a tree, and we played there. And
You played on that at recess?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any other games?
The boys played marbles and jackknife, but nobody ever got in trouble bringing a pocket knife to school like you would now. And we, as I said, we went to other schools and played against them. We always went to Caney School and played basketball or softball and played against them. And we went to Rock Hill School and played against them in basketball. And of course our basketball was dirt floor and everything, but we played. We didn't like to play Rock Hill because they cheated us all the time.
Did you play?
I played basketball in the 7th and 8th grade.
Did the school have any special programs or parties at Christmas?
We had put on a Christmas play, and a lot of times we would have somebody, I can't remember who it would be, but a lot of times we would have something at night that the whole community would come and listen. And I know one time we had and I can't remember who it was, but we had a singer to come and sing, and people come to hear it and everything. That was really our only activities.
Did they have programs or things for other holidays?
We had programs. We put on a little Christmas program, and we always drew names at Christmas and everything, and things like that. I don't think I missed anything that out of the way by going to a country school, because I learned a lot of things that I still remember. And this brings tears to my eyes, Miss McWhorter. I learned respect. You respected your teacher. And it wasn't Irma, it was Miss McWhorter. And we learned yes, sir, and no, sir, and excuse me. We said the pledge every morning. We had a flag just like all schools do. We respected our flag.
Did you have a celebration at the end of the school year?
We had a stew. I think every rural school had a stew at the end of the year, my year. And it was a big thing because the whole community come, and it was just a big lunch that we shared with each other.
Were there other activities with the student? Games or anything?
Well, we ended up maybe playing ball, but other schools would come if they wanted to, but we didn't really have a lot of activity. We just visited and cried till we started back again. And
Did the school have a graduation for the 8th graders?
I got a diploma, but I don't think I'm sorry, but I can't remember a lot of things. But I'd like to say one thing. There was one thing that I remembered. We had to get up in front of the school in our class and recite poems. And I have searched and searched, Miss McWhirter, for this poem. It was do the best of whatever you are, be the best of whatever you are. And I can't find it. But that title rings a bell with me. And it may have not went this way, but here was the meaning that I would repeat to y'all. If I was going to be a cloud, if I couldn't be a cloud, just be a star, but be the best star there is. And I don't know why, but that has always. And I would tell my kids, whatever you want to do, be the best. If you're going to dig ditches, be the best ditch digger there is.
That's good advice.
I said, you don't have to be the president. If you're going to be a ditch digger, be the best. And respect other people.
Was there an organization for parents like PTA?
No.
How was your school heated?
We had a big pot-bellied stove, in each room. And whoever got there the first, the bigger boys, they would start a fire in it. And I remember one time, now I was in a lower grade, but I remember my baby brother put a bullet in it. And it went off. And Mr. Jack Wynn says, I'm gonna whip every boy until I find out who done this. And my brother let him whip one or two, then he admitted that he done it. And we had outdoor bathrooms, and our water and everything was, some of the parents probably dug the well and everything, but we had a long trough just like cattle do, and we had knobs that we turned on, and that's where we went to get a drink of water.
And how did the school, did it have a cooling system?
No, unless we raised a window. And most of the teachers wouldn't let us raise a window because we like to gaze out to see what's going on. And
If someone got hurt at school, how was that handled?
the teacher took care of us and everything, and washed our face and our hands and doctored us. And
What was discipline like?
all I know is that whenever they held that paddle up, you didn't have to have it used on you very often. I never did get a spanking. I never did get punished at school, other than mischievous stuff and say, you don't do that. You know better than that. You respected your teachers back then. I'm not saying that our kids don't now, but sometimes they don't.
What was your favorite subject?
History.
And why did you like history?
I just like to look back, and even now, and study and listen and read about what went on before my time. I like to compare that with what we are going through now. And as I tell my children, they have it lucky compared to whenever I was growing up.
So when you brought your lunch, what did you bring for lunch?
Most of the time we had a sausage and a biscuit. And my mother was always a good cook, and we always had sweets. And a lot of times we would have milk in a pint jar and bring that. And if somebody else had something that we wanted, we would share it. We would swap.
And what did you bring it in?
A paper sack. or a lunch bucket.
Did the teachers give out any awards at the end of the year?
If they did, I guess I didn't enter that. I didn't get, but they always praised us for what we would do, and we would, put on programs and everything, and
Do you remember what your daily routine was like at school?
we had reading, we had to learn how to read, we had writing, we had to learn how to write, and we would, as I said, our teachers back then taught 2 grades, and we would kind of listen whenever she would be teaching like say whenever I was in the 8th, 7th grade, we would kind of listen to what the 8th grade was going, and we kind of picked up on that, and then when we got into 8th grade, we kind of knew what to expect and everything. And we were quiet. We wasn't up and
So you went to Quitman after you left Gilbreath?
And I thought, oh my, so many kids here and everything, I will never make it. But I met Thomasine Kathy, and I have been a friend with Thomasine still till this day.
And how did you get to quit the Quitman school?
We rode the bus then. The bus come by and picked us up.
Did you graduate from Quitman?
I did.
Do you remember what year?
45. It was, I can't remember, Miss McWhorter.
So you went to
47 and 48, I believe.
Okay.
I went to Quitman 4 years.
So part of your school was during World War II.
Yes. I can remember when the war ended, all the church bells was ringing, and
Did you know anyone that served?
if I'm not badly mistaken, and Miss McWhorter, you may remember this, know that, but I believe the year, or may have been the 2nd year that I was going there, Miss Lindsay had a son that was killed at Pearl Harbor.
I think he was the first casualty of Wood County.
I think
during the
so.
war.
And then there was the Blaylock twins. And talking about that, I knew that whenever I was going to Gilbreath, that one superintendent was over all the schools. But I think whenever I was going there, Mr. Lindsay was the superintendent. Am I right on that, Miss?
Probably.
I think he was. And then Miss Holder came after I left Gilbreath. Because after I left the 8th grade, the Gilbreath school still stayed in there for another year or 2.
What would you like for people to remember about the Gilbreath School?
I think it was a great school at that time, back in that time, and I think it was a tribute to our community. And there was children there that went on and made good from they were good citizens. There was one boy, a proven boy, that went to Gilbreath School, and he ended up being a superintendent out in West Texas somewhere, and taught there until he retired. And as I said, then the Cade girls ended up being teachers, and I think a grade school was a good thing back then. We had a lot of great people.
Is there anything else you would like to add about Gilbreath or your growing up in that community?
I think growing up in the years that I went to Gilbreath, now I come from a large family. I had 5, I'm the 5th sister, and I'm the only one out of 8 children that's still alive. I think it makes you a better person, and I know there was hard times, but everybody else had hard times, and you didn't realize that you may not have had the opportunities that you had. But I think I learned a lot of valuable lessons going to there that makes me appreciative of what I have now.
Well, we thank you for your time today and helping us save and preserve the stories of these common schools in Wood County. You are an important part in contributing your stories and your memories today. We are honored to get to listen to those, and we thank you so much.
I thank y'all for asking me. I had good times there and great teachers.